All right, guys. So let's get started. Um, as I mentioned, today is Tuesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday, and then Thursday. All right. Thursday is our last class. Right. It's the last time that we meet. Right. But today is the last class where we have new content, and I go over material, course material. Um, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. We're not going to be able to cover everything. It's a lot that we are meant to learn, in a class like this. But of course, never is enough time to learn everything that there's out there. But we'll do our best, right? And so today I'm going to record the session, so that, well, I'm actually recording right now, so that you have this, because the idea is that this will become helpful not only for your last project, your final project, but in general, right? Any graphics that you're generating, right? As a matter of fact, this class, right, digital media, it's being restructured, right? And there's new courses coming in, particularly fusing digital and analog, which is your hand drawing skills, and the digital ones, into what's called an architectural graphics course. All right. And just for that course is going to be a part one and a part two, so you can understand how much there is to learn. Right? I mean, a semester is not enough, but outstanding progress and work developed so far here in class. The first thing that I'll do right now will be pick up your project number 3, right? The color prints. I have a stapler right here, so that we can go ahead and get these out of the way. There's still a good amount of the class that have a feeling that are either printing or somewhere else, right? But in the meantime, perhaps we can get a few more classmates. Well, I'll do that. Okay, so I'm actually gonna with the recording. All right, so thank you for your project number 3. So again, there's no recipe, unfortunately, and I keep thinking about this, right? Why do we even go into so much detail about this? And I always come back, well, to that idea, and I ask you guys. I think at least I did in studio class, right? I mean, is architecture an art? I mean, is architecture an art? I'm not really looking for a yes or a no, right? So far, where I'm at on that dilemma, right? If architecture is art or not, if is it an art, right? I mean, do you have to be an artist to be an architect, or just by being an architect, are you considered an artist, right? I don't know. I can tell you I've met both and more than that kind of persons and architects, right? And actually, people that are not really architecturally trained, right? But I would say have a better or a better sense of what architecture is. So, all I can say, right? I mean, if it is an art, right? Well, make it one, right? Turn it into an art. Or if you think that architecture should be an art, then how do you turn it into an art? Right? I mean, how do you? What does art mean then? And how do you translate that into architecture, right? Because we know, right? It's not only about making boxes and just making a shelter for someone. It's more than that. It's a little more than that. So this is where I come back to this is like, well, I mean, this is the artistic part of it, right? I mean, which is the representation part of it, right? I mean, how you present your work, right? I mean, there's uh there's a way that you present to the world yourself, right, as a person, right? There's a way that you present your car, your home, your bedroom, anything that it's yours or of yours, right? And it says something without getting too much into what it says, but it says something. We are humans like that, right? Everything that we understand, we learn it from our previous past experiences, and we connect certain dots together, all right? So that's what we have for today. Um, so notice that these are the requirements for the final project. Um, it's a couple of prints. As you will see, I have decreased the number of prints that Jonathan, not really sure what's going on. Sure, this is recording right here. Jonathan, do you need to go? Okay, Jonathan. Okay. Okay, Jonathan. Um, Sorry about that. So again, as I was mentioning, right, for the project itself, all right, this is the beginning criteria. We'll see towards the end of the class if how it changes or if we add anything. But notice that we're gonna have prints and we're gonna have uploads. Now the prints, as you can see, I have reduced the number of views that you need. I think right now for project number 3, you're submitting how many pages? Nine, right, Maria? For the final one, we're gonna have 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll talk more in detail as to what they are. Plus, potentially, that one that you have out there, one more time of just the selected property. There's gonna be sort of like the cover page with a rectangle that shows project number 4, where does it fall inside of project number 2? Right, project number 2 was a huge area. Project number 4, we zoomed in, right? Where is that zoom in window on project number 2? I'll go more in detail about that. We talked about the area, right? 1500 by 1500 square feet, and that this is a 3D massing model. Again, it's important that you get used or acquainted with that term, right? A massing model. You're gonna hear this a lot, and that's what it is. And if you have successfully completed project number 3, you already have that, right? A 3D massing model. As well, yesterday we talked about sun and daylight application, right? I am looking into your final project for you to use 3 different settings. Change the sun, change the time of the day, change the direction of the sun, change the intensity of it, right? Light and use application, the use of the 3 types of lights, whichever ones you want to use. We have the point, linear, the rectangular one, the spotlight, and so forth, right? At least experiment with 3. We talked about camera setup yesterday as well and saving the views. So make use of that. Along with your prints, you would also be uploading your Rhino file and, of course, the digital version of the PDF, just like you guys did right now for project number 3. Prints, digital upload of PDF, digital upload of Rhino file. Name views. Right, we talked about how to create these views. Now, the ones that we are going for in this final project is an overall isometric southwest, one aerial, which will be diagrammed 3-dimensionally. I will explain that in today's class, and 3 eye level images as well, right? Render and with people, and I'll go more into detail what else we have in that 3D model. You will also be using basic rendering and material application. We're going to be using solid colors, right? Again, the idea is that for the most part, we're going into Studio 1 or Studio 2. You will have other software classes or workshops where you will further expand your knowledge and skills about rendering, right? And what that means. For right now, my main goal is to teach you guys how to play with solid colors, how to change the 3 main settings that you have with any material, which is the gloss finish, reflectivity, and transparency, right? And those are simple settings that we can adjust for each and every material. And then the second part of this, or the second component of this, on those same drawings, is the diagramming part of this, as I mentioned before, right? Making use of text objects. You guys remember that? That's how you guys developed this logos right here. It was that 3D text that you're actually able to manipulate as if it was an object. We'll be using this to label our streets, right? So in a very interesting way, right? And I started playing with the Luis's file right there, and I have an example right there. So we'll use our text objects to label all of the streets that you have on your project. Solid color application in this fashion, right? As in material and rendering. to depict different types of buildings that you have, right? A college, sidewalk, building or object, right? And I mean college, uh, sidewalk, asphalt, restaurant, etc. Direction and area lines. This will make more sense as I go over this. If you guys remember about Make 2D, Rhino Make 2D that you guys also use for your logos back here, I want to teach you guys now how to apply that into an architectural context, particularly with buildings and drawings. So I'll go over that. And then lastly, your composition, just like the one that you're submitting today, right? Your final 5 sheets, or as many as we end up with today, should be laid out in Adobe Illustrator with titles, subtitles, title boxes, and some additional information that I'll be giving you guys today, which is the annotation and line editing. And lastly, right, I'll show you today as well how to add some life into your drawings by adding things that we recognize, let's say in the common world, such as people and maybe trees or birds or stuff like that, right? And for that, I shared a resource with you guys already. So again, the idea is that for right now, again, I'm just going to sort of work with you guys as I go, right? I'm going to try to do this as linear as possible, but this is going to be a very dynamic class because I'm going to be, again, explaining all sorts of things. And again, I might run into something and I realize, oh, I need to go back and explain that again. So again, I do apologize if, again, the order is not so structured right here, but you guys are actually helping facilitate that with this class, all right, with this content, because again, the results so far in the class, well, I just think they're of great quality. Okay, I can start with what I have so far, right, in terms of what I've been playing with, and I'll share this with you. I've gone into setting up artboards. I've gone into exporting images from Rhino and importing them in Illustrator. I'm going to talk about image quality. That's a question that I get a lot, and it's a question that should be addressed, right? How to avoid, whoops, and I need to make sure that you guys are actually looking at my screen. There we go. Right. So this is what we're after, right? Notice that it's a combination of lines, right, and images. Notice as well that, as I mentioned right now, we're going to talk about image quality, right? This idea that, well, from a distance, certain drawings seem okay. If I press Control-0 to zoom the extent of this artboard, right, they look okay. But as you start zooming into the image itself, right, you can see that it's pixelated, and that's something that we want to avoid, right? So I'll go into how to improve that quality in general, but also what are the implications of that, right? I mean, there's a price to pay for that, which is time. Most of the time, most of the time is time, which is the length of rendering process that it takes. Okay. And again, as I mentioned before, the more lights and the more content that you add to a 3D model, the heavier that it becomes, right? It's a processing time. So again, we have diagramming lines, we have text objects, and we have callouts, right, or arrows. We have also, right, and this is what I mean, using your 2D, right, drawing, and how to actually overimpose it, right, on your 3D drawings, your renderings, so that you get this more defined drawing, right? It's easy with renderings to lose, right, this line quality, that sharp line quality, okay, that you get from your 3D modeling. However, it's a technique that I really enjoy, the graphical quality of it, and as I mentioned, you know, how to bring in some basic sense of people, and again, basic sense of scale as well. Right? That's homeboy right there with the hat, just yellow walking by. Setting up your perimeter right there, and how to turn your 2D diagram into a 3D diagram, right? very, very simple principles. Again, this is the culmination of everything that we have learned so far, and this is where, again, softwares come together. This is the, well, perhaps I can start here. This is the original file that I actually used yesterday, if you remember, to insert these slides. Let me go into shade it again, and I'll stress this enough again, or I just bring this up. Don't worry right now to follow him, because again, it just won't work for you to follow. Right? Just worry about taking notes, and more than anything, just follow the process, my process, and I think that you can actually learn a lot from that. Right? And if not, just ask questions. Right? I mean, Munoz, remember how you were doing that? I'm trying to do that and it's not working. Right? And then we can discuss that. So we talked about our lights yesterday, and this is the original file that, for the most part, I think, right, Luis, that Luis shared with us. Right? This is his work in progress so far, and this is what I've been playing with and just exploring. And I really like to use those words because I think that every time that you do this, it's a way for you to explore, and again, be creative in the way that you do something. Right. So for me, no matter how many times I have done this before, for me, it's always an exploration. I really don't have a recipe, as I mentioned before, of okay, you do this, and then that, and then that. Not in a linear sequence. I know more or less the tools that I have available, but I always like to push them, right? And push them as much as I can. All right. So what do we say if we, and again, if I go onto a render preview, right? Remember that this is a render preview. I can start seeing some of the effects that we have here. Okay. And as I mentioned, right, that's our 3D text right there, and again, even just stuff like this, right? And of course, just remember, just like anything, different instructors, different people might appreciate this differently. So always remember to check in with whoever you are doing this for, if that is something that they would like or that they accept. But I think it's also for you guys as graphic artists, right? Just interesting to explore. I mean, just as the fact that sort of these graphics, right? And later on, it's incredible what architecture students and anyone with an architecture background can do, from graphics, logos, any kind of design, you name it, right? The tools that you learn here are not constrained necessarily into what architecture is, because again, what exactly is architecture? All right. So without getting too much philosophical, right? Let's go over this. Right. So Luis right here has been very good at layer management. Right. Everything is logged and everything is well controlled. I recommend do the same for everything else that you do. Right. Lights. And of course changing your layer colors. Right. Especially right when we're doing post-production, it's a lot of stuff on, stuff off. All right, so layer management is critical in this part of the process, right? And even just recognizing, right? I mean, graphically, it's not the same just seeing blue all over the place and seeing certain colors that stand out. We talked about having your property specific color, right? I mean, any kind of color as long as it stands out from the rest. Yeah. I think the way that I started this was with text objects, right? And I'm not actually very familiar with I'm actually familiar with the area quite a bit, actually. Perhaps not so much with the streets. So perhaps um, uh, Luis can maybe just he like immediately is like, well, let me look that up, right? No, yeah, if you can actually open up maps, so you can maybe give me a few of the adjacent streets, right? I know we have Paisano, right? By the way, we are by the zoo, right? A little bit before that, by Jefferson High School, right? Right. This corner right here is Jeff. To the left. All right, somewhere along there, right? So we cover this, right? I mean, how to insert 3D text, right? I'm just gonna type Paisano not sure if it's drive or place or street. Drive. Okay, Paisano Drive. All right. Can click OK, right, and I bring it in. Now again, as I mentioned, right, let's let's keep track of our um, um, layers, right? So you can type text object, right? Let's see, maybe I'll do something that stands out, right? Such as that. And I can send that object onto its proper layer. I'm just going to select the little pull from the gumball, hold shift, right? And for right now, just increase the size of it, right? Um, let's see, it's not grouped. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Right, select it, type group, because those little dots such as the drive one and your eyes and all of those are very easy to just leave behind when things are not grouped. I'm going to do an extrusion of this curve, right? So that I can give it a 3D quality of it. Let me just jump first onto the right layer, right? So I'm on under my text objects layer, right? Select the object, extrude, curve, right? Enter. Now the height, well, that is going to be part of the graphic exercise, right? I mean, how high should this be, right? For right now, say that's okay. Um, select the object, oops, and the extrusion was done outside of the group, so I'll just select that and group one more time. Now, if I go into my top view, right, I can see this text right here, right? I would like to align it as much as possible, right, with the direction of the street. I'm not being hyper, specific about this, just to give it a slight angle to fit that as well. Something to keep in mind as well is the size of this, and that is something that perhaps we'll go back and forth between it, right? But for right now, we have that. That's Paisano. Let's see what we get when we go onto our shaded. What's that street right there on this one right here, Luis? Concepcion. All right. All right. So I'm going to type text. Whoops. Text object. Right. Concept in Spanish or in English? Concept like that. Oops. Concepcion. All right. Street. Concepcion Street. Right. Now here, right, I'm not really sure how accurate this window is for version number 5, right? But this is version 6, right? Let's see what we get now, right? The first one that I did was with this setting, curves. Right next to it, we have that it has surfaces. Right? Let's see what we get there. And of course, we have solid there that perhaps we can kind of see what's going to happen, but let's just surprise ourselves or amaze ourselves as we go, right? So Concepcion Street, right? I can group it, and scale it, right? And I can rotate it, right? And that would be this one right here. Okay, right? And I can go onto the 3D version of this because, again, just look, right, what we've done so far, right? The fact that we started with curves and then we had to extrude the curves nonetheless. Now we have surfaces, but again, we must extrude them, right? Now, again, I'd like to point out one last time that there's a difference between, or there's different extrusion types, right? There's an extrude CRV and there's extrude SRF. One for curves, one for surfaces. I will select that. Notice as well that I can actually, if you have snap on, you can snap to the height that you had already set up for the first text so that they match in height. Okay. Now, again, right, as we learned from the other object, once you do the extrusion, you lose, it's not that you lose the group. Actually, I can show you that the group is actually there. It's just that the group, oops, no, I lied. The group disappeared because that was the curves, the surfaces, I'm sorry, the original surfaces. So I'll go ahead and select them again and just type group. Now, This is, I'll take this chance right here to talk about text. In general, right, architectural drawings, you only want to have top two different text directions. No matter what they are, pick, right, and be constant. What do I mean by that? If I have that text right there and I copy it, right, and I bring it over here, right, perhaps you might think, well, what's the big deal, right? I just do this and have it like that. Right? Now we have one text direction, second text direction, and we have third, right? You want to avoid that. You only want to have two different text directions, right? And usually, I can almost tell you 80% of the time, 90% of the time, of course, is this one, left to right. And the other one, it's actually this one right here, right? For the most part, right? That would be playing it safe, right? That means that all your following text, right, should follow that. If it's going to be a horizontal or a vertical text like this one, right, it should follow that same orientation. And the idea of this is that, again, anyone looking at these drawings doesn't have to be flipping your drawing in more than two directions, right? You either have it straight as it should be, or you just turn it the other direction so you can read the text. And this goes for notes, this goes for labels, titles, and so forth. Of course, there's always places and times to break the rules, right? However, not this time. This time, let's just use that, at least for our streets. At least for our streets, right? What is this one right here, Luis? Alameda. All right. So let's do that, right? I'm going to type text object one more time. Enter. Alameda Avenue. All right. Nice. We have three different types of street. Now, how about I do solids, right? And see what happens. All right. So I'll bring that in there. Select it. Left click on this button right here, which is zoom selected in all viewports. Right. And then I'll exit out of my top view, and then I'll come over here. Right. Well, what happened? All right. It worked, right? Let's see, I'm curious, what's the distance for this, right? If I do that right there, 10 feet, right? So there's your 3D object, right? Again, anyone perhaps a command that I could use to bring this to the right size? Huh? Scale 1D. Thank you, Paulina, right? So scale one direction, enter, right? I can, oh, Rhino, from that point to this point over here, make it be, right? And I'm snapping to this other one, this height, right? And that's what Rhino does, right? Let's see. And of course, I guess what I forgot to do first is to scale it up, right? So I'm gonna go back to my top view, right? And again, especially in this one, since Alameda is significantly in a different direction, which is part of what is interesting about talking about site analysis, right? I mean, this particular lot and property that Luis has selected is actually really interesting in the sense that it's located in a triangular sort of block or lot. Right? I mean, this and that at some point Alameda and Paisano, right, converge at some point right here. Apparently, at least from what we get out of the drawings that we have right now. So again, I place it there. Well, we'll come back to the, probably we have to edit the height one more time, right? But we have added some of our text. And again, this is just being fun with text and how we can actually use it in this 3D sort of fashion right here. And let's go ahead and change that because I can already see that the height is very different. So I'll go ahead and type scale 1D, again, select the object, enter, right? So that from, and just be very careful with your selection, right? You want it to be on the same plane, right? The same, there we go. All right, so we have now at least the three streets that surround the property itself. I think actually the color itself, I added that. I don't know if Luis had this layer right there, but I have it right there, property, right? And I added that color. Now, the idea for this as well, as you guys have it here, right, or as Luis have it right here, you have a layer called buildings, right? Buildings layer. We can create a sub layer, right? And since we have, I think that's Texas Tech, right? College of Health and Science. I'm gonna add some layers right here, right? So buildings, right? We had a layer, I think, from the project number 2, right? College and universities. I can add more layers right there. Can someone give me other the layers that we had? What else did we have? What else? High schools? Something else other than education? Groceries and restaurants. Okay, restaurant. And of course, this is not all of the categories. It's only the ones that you have here on the area that you're working with, right? Groceries, right? And sure, I'll add one more time. Sub layer, fast food. Whoops. Whoop. Fast food. Right. I have those. Those are okay. Now, this is another set of colors, right? This is another set of colors that you select for this. College and universities, I'll just do a red since Red Raiders there. Restaurants, right? I'll just keep going down the rainbow, right? Maybe some sort of pink right there. Groceries, right here. You already have some blues, which is going to be the remainder of the buildings right there. I'll do that. And fast food right there, maybe some sort of that's very similar to what we have there already, so I'll select that right there. And again, always can go back and change these, right? So go ahead and start changing these, right? And I'll just do a few just to go over the example right here. So that would be that one right there. I'm not sure, maybe some of these other buildings are part of the school. I'm not sure. No. All right. How about this? No, this gas station. Maybe I'll send it to groceries right now. Just for educational purposes right here. How about this little guy right there? At the bank. Dang it. All right. Fast food it is. From bank to fast food. This one? This one is a Dairy Queen? Oh, this one right here, the little hut right there. Oh, perfect. All right, so I have fast food right there. Then with the bank, how about this guy right there? I'll just add something there. Um, Restaurant right there. Maybe it's a restaurant. Right? And then the rest, well, they're just perhaps they're just houses or you know anything that is. And maybe we'll add these two as commercial. Or what else do we have? Groceries. Sure. Yeah, that's like a. All right. Remember, we've gone over how to set up our views. Right? Our views. We have our EL1. All right. Bless you. All right. Aerial one. Let's say maybe I want to play with this one right here. It's actually perhaps a really nice one, right? Let's frame it, right? I mean, once you have it, remember, I don't know actually if I cover that, but you can actually update your view. All right. Let's say that again, I'm working with Aerial 1. Set view, Aerial 1. And let's say that I just need to edit it a little bit, or just update this a little bit. Right? I mean, rotate it perhaps a little bit and frame a little bit different. I can go back to set view, main views, select the one that this is, which is Aerial 1, hit save, right? And this dialog box comes up. And if it sees that you have a title that you already used, it gives you this message right there. And I'm gonna hit yes actually, because it's gonna override the view that I had already saved right there. It's gonna update the view, right? So Arial 2, Arial number 1 has been updated. Right? So we're starting to let's say finalize our view selection. Now for materials, right, because again these colors right there, those are um, layer colors versus material colors, right? We go to the render view of this and it just looks monochromatic, right? It's just black and white and just some grays in there. Now the idea is to start using some of the colors, right, that we have assigned to these, right? So we can start doing that. So college and universities, right? And for this, again, your screen and your window might be different from this. They have greatly upgraded and revamped how material assignation works, but nonetheless, the place where materials are assigned, right, are in this column right here, right next to the layer color. So there's a little circle right next to it, right? And if you click under, it should bring some sort of window. The idea is to create a new material, right? Use a new material. I like to start in a custom one, let's say just from scratch. And again, I really do love this setting from the new version of Rhino. You'll see that they already give you a lot of material options right there. I really encourage you to explore them and play with them if you have version number 6, just because they're great. They're really great. So I'll just go into a custom, since that's actually what I like to go over with today with you guys. You know, how to create a custom material, at least just the basic color and some of these basic settings, right? So color, right? This is now the rendering color that you're gonna have, right? And again, we talked about red for Raiders, since it's Texas Tech, right? So we have that. Now, the three main settings that you have for any material, aside from the texture, if you have one, are these ones, right? The glossiness of it, the reflectivity of it, and the transparency, right? Glossy, right? Everyone knows what glossy means, right? What's the opposite of glossy? Matte, right? I mean, so again, shiny, so it's not shiny, right? Glossy as the board right there, perhaps the white one, right? You see that subtle glossiness to it, right? Reflectivity, though, it's the quality of light bouncing off of such material, right? So it reflects light, right? Of course, but you'll see that you'll have let's say a mirror image of whatever is reflecting, all right? And lastly is the transparency, which, as the name implies, right, is how much you can see through the object. And again, just being digital media class, I really want you guys to explore and play with this, right? You are not going to get a realistic version of this chunk of the city, right? You're going to get an artistic representation, a rendered view of the city, of the part of the city that you model, right? So that means, right, that what happens if I add some transparency to that building right there, basically, right? Maybe a little bit of glossiness and maybe some reflectivity. Now, I want to say that it depends on the file, but sometimes a little goes a long way. All right, so I hit OK, right, and we see that the building, right, has been colored that way. And again, that as you rotate through it, right, you see the effect not only of the sun, right, but also of the lights that we have incorporated here. Now, again, if you go ahead and type sun, enter, right, and make sure that it's on, you can then again play with the settings of this, and you'll see how that color, right, changes at least visually on the face of the building. All right, so we're gonna come back to this window in a second. So again, I just lost my place in the model. All right, that's why it's really important that you get used at saving the views, right? Because again, it's you are working, once you decide a specific view that you're working with, you're gonna learn that whatever settings you have for a particular view may not work for another one. That's why you really want to store that view so that it doesn't change on you. Okay, so I can already see that there's going to be some really bright white spots right there. We'll see what luck do we have. All right, I'm just going to go through this real quick, adding some colors to this. loosely maybe related to what I have there, though I just made a mistake right there. I'm actually working on plaster. I should actually create a new custom material, right, which is there. And then now, there we go. We add the color. Say maybe a lot even more transparency right there, and I'll just leave it at that. Right? We'll see that that building turned pink, and you can start seeing the effects of that transparency setting. Right? You can see how you basically are able to see through that building. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back to this right here, area 1. Let me just go onto the shaded real quick so that I can see which ones are the ones that right, that I should upload or I'm sorry, change right there. So it's this one right there, which is this blue. Use a new material, custom, give it a color. It was some sort of a lighter blue, hit OK. Oops. Don't forget not only to pick from the rainbow right here, but also right now I had it in white right there, so that's not really what I wanted. There we go, bring it there. All right, we have that. Again, I'll play with some transparency and slight reflectivity right there, just to give some different effects to this building right there. And then we have the green back there, right? Use a new material, right? Perhaps we can use this custom one right there. We'll do a green. Hopefully it stands out significantly from your property or the property that I have right now. All right, I'll add more transparency right there, right there. And then lastly, right, I'm gonna go into the property one and material color. We have this aqua, right? Maybe color right there. Let's see how much it differentiates between the other green that I had just set up. All right, then maybe that one, since it's the property, I'll leave the transparency at 0, right? But maybe I'll play with some reflectivity. Let's see what we get. So it's kind of shiny and some glossy finish right there. Okay, but again, I encourage you guys to explore and play with this, right? And for you to witness, first and foremost, witness the effects that each slider has, so that forget about this class. Well, not yet. We still haven't finished the class, right? But again, later on, the important thing is the later applications that you can have with this software. You know what? I like to actually, since we added some lights in this building right there, let's actually send that building right there into the pink and see how the lights affect that building right there, since we added that material. Now, the street grid, I'm not sure if that's something that I did or Luis did, but I already had a material right there, and it's that black plaster. I think that's fine right there, as well as the city grid or the city blocks has that gray one. That's okay, right? That's I think that's a good way, right, to read what's going on right there. If anything, we can turn them down a little bit, right? And again, it takes a number of renderings to do this, right? Now, we talked about rendering itself, right, which is where we press with our left button of the mouse, right, left click on that sphere right there, and we start creating a rendering, right? And it goes through the process right there. Not sure if I'll let it run right there. Unfortunately, while it's rendering, there you go. Okay, there we go. Right. So that was again the left button, right? It says render. Now on the right, though, if you press the right button on the rendering sphere right there, you actually get what's called your toggle render settings, right? This is a really important window right here, right? And this is, I think it used to be rendering settings. Might still be called that way, right? I can see that actually it's modified based on the other file that I was. Whoops, that's because that's the wrong file actually. Let me go to the right file. There you go. Right, so this rendering is going on right there. So see, that's why I was confused, right? So unfortunately, while this is rendering, you cannot use the software, because the computer is processing. So that's why I was a little bit thrown off that I was actually able. But it's because I have this other file that I was playing with this morning open. So it's almost done right here. It's at an 87% right there. But you can start seeing a number of things, right? Such as the colors, the transparencies, the shadows, right? The building itself, right? Look at that. It looks like a card paint or something, right? Very, very shiny, glossy, right? Which is what it is, right? We have our blue right there, not so transparent, but we also see that we get that grain, right? And that's what we call pixelation. That's something that we really want to avoid as much as possible, right? It is just not legible. I mean, it doesn't let the building or the drawing itself be read accurately. And then we have, right, what I talked about, the Texas, the college, right, the university, right, with that red. However, even though the red material is assigned to it, we'll see those white spots right there. And that has to do a combination of the intensity of the ambient light, the sunlight, and as well as the settings that we have used for the material, right? It's kind of like that glare, right? If you're driving, right, or if you look at buildings at a certain time of the day and the sun is hitting at them, right, it's just so bright that it just looks white and it kind of blinds you as well. Right. So I'm waiting for this to finish so that I can actually save it. All right, so that we can actually keep track of the different changes of this. Right. I am at a 98%. It should be done pretty quickly. All right, so just wait right there at 99%. Remember, as soon as this is done, right, we'll go up here, right, to the left. Right, this button right here is going to uh, get colored in, right, which is where we can save our image. So there we go. It's done. Save image as. I have created this folder right there, which a bunch of tests that I'll take you guys through, right? So I'll go ahead and create a new folder just to call this class, as in like we did this in class, and I'll just call this number 1. Save it. Okay. Now, pixelation, right? Pixelation and image quality. Pixelation and image quality, it's something that you find, again, if you right-click on that rendering sphere. Okay, and I'll take you guys through this window right here that, again, if you're using version 5, it might be a little bit different, but the settings, though, remain the same. Now, you have a full area right there, a section that it says, right, resolution and quality. Resolution and quality, and that's basically what you're looking for when you talk about an image that is not legible. What's the resolution and what's the quality of it, right? So the dimensions, you can see, right, that we begin with the viewport. What do you mean? Well, that's this right here, right, the viewport, and not that one right there on the wall, but this one right here on my laptop. And this one right here, that's the size that you have right here. And that's why, again, as you guys have experience with Google Maps, right, when you're actually capturing images from different screens, that's the difference in size. So I'm going to go back to this window right here. Now, you'll see as well that that's locked right there, size, because I have dimensions as the viewport as the dimensions. Now, right next you have the size of it, which is pixels. I'm sorry, the units. There's a drop-down menu, right, that now we bring this to inches, right? So that's a good way as well to keep track of the image quality, because it's not the same printing something, let's say wallet size, right, like a little portrait wallet size, than printing something that is going to go on a billboard, right? The quality of it is way different, right? Now, what gives you that quality is your DPI, right? Your dots per inch, right? And that's this number right here. You're gonna hear all sorts of suggestions right there. In general, I can tell you that draft prints, that means that prints that are not the final one, but you want to get a really good sense of how things are gonna look, should be at least 150. However, for really, really final ones, it should be no under 300. Okay. You also have right here this draft quality. This quality tab right there that again you should keep track of it, right? I mean, again, right now we're starting with Studio 1, going into Studio 3, but as you move forward with this, you're gonna notice that the attention, right, and the amount of time that you spend on these settings increases, right? Let's not talk about a thesis project or something like that. That all right, I'm gonna give myself full 2 weeks of just generating renderings, right? And you use the best settings that you have. So I like to point these out as well. So I'll use, let's say, final one for right now. Now, lastly, something that I'm going to change, right, it's actually going to be the size, right? Because again, right now it has some really good quality, but still it's small. Right, so you have a really tiny image with really high resolution, right? We're gonna be printing at a 12 by 18 page, right? So why not? Let's actually change that, right? So as you see from this drop-down menu, I can go into a custom one, and I can actually type in, and I can lock the ratio right there. That just means that it keeps the proportion of whatever setting you have before that right there. I'll show you. So if I type, let's say the width as 18, right? This changes automatically based on that ratio right there. You don't have to keep that on, right? And we can see more or less how this changes, right? Now you will see, right, that this changes right there the dimensions, right, in terms of pixels. I know that it's just a lot about units, pixels, inches, dots, right? What are we talking about? I'm not going to tell you that I'm an expert of it. Little by little, you just get the hang of it and kind of you just hope for the best, right? But those are all things that just know that if you just play with them, right, you will get different results. But ultimately, what we want to avoid is what? Pixelation, right? Pixelation, and that's just based on the size of the image that you're printing. That is why test prints are so important. Right? That's when, again, your project is not due until, let's say, X day. I ask you for a print a couple of days before that, right? Just so that we both see how this is actually printing, because the screen is very deceiving. Right? It's very, very deceiving. Now, I think this is new on this setting right here. We can actually go automatically into a rendering from the rendering setting window. So I can hit there on that button right there, though I am afraid it will take a good amount of time because we have drastically changed the settings for this, right? So I'm just going to wait for the window to pop out. All right, we have don't know where is that one from. There you go. Initializing rendering. Let's just try to get an estimate, and let me maybe resize the window so that you guys can see what I'm looking at. And you just gotta be very careful, especially if you're using one of those older computers or laptops, right? That it's kind of like your little dog, your puppy or something, right? It's like, oh, it's getting old, right? It's kind of like, it's not as fast as it used to, right? Not as hyper as it used to. Kind of like the same with computers, right? You start learning when they're a little bit slower. Be careful with renderings because it's a good way to crash your computer, right? Especially if you're working on a rendering and then let's say I jump onto Illustrator or I jump into another Rhino file. Again, it's all processing, right? It's all data that you're taking away from the brains of your computer, right? And it just gives up. Right? It's kind of like when you're working out, like, all right, I'm done, I'm tired. You're just gonna like crash, right? And you lose your progress right there. So we can see, right? We can tell that it's gonna take a little bit, right? Because of the pace, right? The speed at which the image is being displayed, right? So brings you right here the rendering progress. Though that's a good thing though for us right now because we do know that we want to increase the quality of this. I am going to stop this, right? Because we do have to go over a few more things right there. And hopefully we get to a point that you can actually try it. And while you guys are working on your project, I'll give it a shot at a higher quality rendering, right? So I'm going to stop that. right, with that little stop hand right there. Again, just be patient. Don't just click on things, right? I mean, one click, two clicks is enough. Sometimes we just feel that the more that we click on it, the faster that it's going to respond, and it's not the case, right? So abort it, right? That means that aborted the rendering right there, and I'm going to close this as well. No, I don't want to save the image right now. I'm going to keep going on this rendering settings that are important for you to know. All right. The next one is the background, right? And right now you see that the background is set to a solid color, right? And that's actually a drop-down menu, well, more like a color picker menu. As I click on that box right there, I can select the color, right? And it gives me that as the background, a green sky, right? Don't know about that, right? But we can have some sort of blue or something, right? Kind of a very dull blue right there. Or we can have, that was a solid color, we can have a gradient, right? Gradient works as the name implies. You have two colors and it blends them, right? The bottom color is the bottom portion of the image. The top color is the top color of the image, right? Usually the top or higher portion, it's darker, and the bottom one, it's slightly lighter, right? Though again, it's all about how do you play with this, right? And I'll do that. Now if I rotate here a little bit, I want to see if I can get a more contrasting effect between the, let's say that right there. Right? So we have that right there, that's your gradient. And we have other ones of which I will not talk about right now. Now, I'm not very happy with that, so maybe I'll also play with that one a little bit more. And that right there. Now, you can also play with the colors, right? I mean, maybe on the top one, it's actually more like a sunset color. And then bottom one, it's kind of like a blue right there, and you can see the gradient a little bit better. Sometimes we do have those beautiful purple skies right here in El Paso, right? Or reddish, oranges, very, very vibrant sunsets, perhaps even right now during the summer, right? I mean, we can start getting some of that, right? And again, that's some sort of artistic quality that you can add to your renderings. We keep going down this menu right here, and lighting, right? We have a full setting on lighting right there. The important ones are, of course, the sun. I will give you those shadows right there, and also this skylight, right? The skylight is just the standard light source that the software has, right? Think about it as a photo booth. I mean, we have a photo booth here at school, right? This kind of like white box that just has a bunch of lights in it. It's just, again, it's just the light source, a light with no specific source, right? It's your skylight. And a lot of times, right, actually turning those on and off, you can already see the different effects that it has on the image. Remember, the final image is not the one that you actually are getting right here. This is a preview. The actual final image is the one that you get once you press here. So even though we get a preview right here, things look way different once we actually hit render. Additionally, I like to point out this color right here, which is your ambient light, and that also has a big effect on how things look. All right, so right now it's set to a black. If I select light gray, right, you'll see how the colors themselves take on that selected color, and you get that right. I mean, ambient light. I don't know how to describe it, but that's also something that it's there. Right, so again, from a dark gray to a light gray, or maybe even that brownish looks kind of interesting. I have no idea what we're gonna get, but that's actually kind of the fun part, but also kind of the frustrating part sometimes of this, because sometimes you do have to wait a couple of minutes or more just to see even what you're getting and see if you like it or not. Let's see if I perhaps go to final quality. onto, let's say, a low quality, right? And I hit render, right? Maybe what do we get, right? For the window to pop up. And again, I can already hear my laptop making that fan noise, right? I mean, it means that it's not that it's overheating, right? But it's working harder. Like when you're exhausted and right, you're running, and then your breath kind of gets a little bit heavier, right? There you go. That's a big difference, right, from the high resolution setting to this one right there, because it's already moving, right? It's already at 30% versus the other one wasn't even. It actually had not even given me an estimate of time. It was still calculating the length that it would take to render, right? So move this up here a little bit, right? And we start seeing what we get, right? So those buildings are the ones that I did not access to material to, and walking away from my buildings, but you can see how they have absorbed that ambient color. You can see how the sky, right, has absorbed that color as well, and you can see how it's still not really results, right? Not really ideal results that we're getting right here. Right? You can also see right how that ambient light blends in with all the other colors that you have here. You can especially see on the sidewalk right there that is a gray, but it's a brownish gray or pinkish gray, right? Because again, as an ambient light, right, that light gets sort of mixed in with whatever colors you have right there. Now, next guys right there are what are those? Right? Um, they're there, but we can't see them. Right? They're there, but what could we do, perhaps? Huh? Yeah, right, Julio. Just kind of like not full tortilla flip right now, like 180, right? But more like a just kind of like stand it up, right? Stand up, and we do that really easily. So there we go. We have one right there, a rendering. It took about 2 minutes to develop. It's still thinking. There we go. I'll save it. That was number one. Number two, save it. Thinking, right? Saving the image right there, and we close this, right? So again, this is the rendering settings right there. That again, you'll be. This is what I mean from the assignment, right? Light settings, right, and sun and daylight application, as well as the rendering settings, right? 3 different settings, right? Play with that, right? I mean, have fun with that. Again, this is not a studio project, so for me, it's not about um, I guess the design of it or how it looks. It's more about you exploring the software, so that when you are going into a design studio, you know more or less what you're trying to do, and maybe make some funky or errors in this class and project, learn from those, and get better ultimately at your representation skills, right? So I'm going to close this, and again, we'll come back to it, so that maybe, right, we can actually edit those. Something, right, the text objects right there, I didn't add some graphic quality to them, but first let's flip them, right, or rotate them, right? So again, I can just use my gumball right there to rotate them. You can see already that I need to move them as well, right, because they're sort of sunk in from the ground right there, right? So I can actually move them a little bit. And again, this is where just be creative with it, have fun. You'll see that by them being objects, you're going to have shadows, right? Which then are also going to play into the graphics of this, right? And I'll leave this. I don't know how that got that weird angle right there, but I'll go ahead and leave it for right now. It's just as Bob Ross would say, maybe some of those happy errors or mistakes right there. There we go. Right, that's still in a weird, really weird angle. Let's maybe just play with this like that. Right. We'll go back to our view. I think it was Arial 1. Right. Whoa, that paisano right there. That's too much. There we go. Set view. Arial 1. There we go. All right. So we can maybe And based on that, remember you can do scale, right? Too much, or you can just be a little bit more subtle and just have them smaller, right? You can have them maybe a little bit more floating like that, right? And Alameda. What if we add some sort of material quality to that text, right? So we can do that. Use a new material, right? Custom. I don't know, something that stands out. Maybe we'll give the street names a yellow, right? Maybe something just that stands out. I want it to be there, but maybe not too much. So I'll just give it a super deep transparency right there, and maybe just a little bit of a gloss. Right? Maybe we'll do that. And again, I'm on my shaded view right there, but if I go onto my render view, you can start seeing how that changes right there. Let's see what else. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a file save as. Don't forget to do the same, right? And just label this class. Right? Don't forget to constantly be saving your work. So let's talk about now. Right, so that's rendering. Again, it's a back and forth kind of thing. It's first of you learning what's out there, and then from there deciding what you like, essentially, and from there, making changes or adjustments as you need. Right, I'm gonna make a copy of this slide right there. I'm kind of curious what happens if I bring it over here and maybe shine a light. Let's go to render. There we go. It's right there. Maybe something like that, and rotate it a little bit like that, kind of like that corner right there. Just be a little bit dramatic since it's the building in question right there. Right, so set view, aerial right there, and that's the original right there. Okay, file, save. All right. Now I like to then talk about image exporting right there. I think I'm gonna have to use the rendering that I just generated right now here in class. This one right there, even though it's not the greatest quality, right? You see the difference right there from that first one to this one right there. But I'll use that right next so that we can talk about how to work with this combination of 3D drawing and 3D diagramming component of it. And this, again, it's from these images that I share with you guys, right? How can you start annotating, right? Well, here, and always, personally, I encourage you guys to, anytime that you see an image that you like from anywhere, right? I mean, just ask yourself, right? I mean, I wonder how they got this, right? I mean, okay, so it seems there's a really big spotlight right here, right? Because this looks really dark right here. There also seems to be some sort of internal lighting source in here, right? And of course, this glass material, right, that is framing this tower right there, right? The same, right? There is obviously some ambient light or skylight, but there's also some perhaps interior light sources, right? And these are the kind of drawings that I'm talking about. Right? I mean, how to incorporate diagramming, such as text, callouts, or arrows, and your perimeter area right there. And again, this is some of the idea as well of coloring the buildings, right? And some basic, but nonetheless, graphical application of this, right? Such as the text. And this is the origin of this, right? I mean, this is one that I started, and I like to take you guys through how I did this, right? Because it's a process. Again, you first have your 2D objects, right? These are all lined with the make 2D, and then from there we copy paste it right onto this object right there. Okay, so let's start a new one, or I'll go ahead and set up a new sheet right there. Sure, 3 boards. Remember that you can set up the boards that I think you guys will have 5, so I'll go ahead and set those 5 up. 12 by 18, create. Okay, I can go to File, Place, so that I can bring in the image that I want to use, right? Place, right? And click there. Make sure that anytime you bring in an image, and you see how nice it fits onto the board right there, because I had already set up the size of this to be 12 by 18, right? It actually is the same size as the board, right? The 12 by 18, okay? I can scale it down just a little bit, right? So that, again, holding shift, make sure that you hold shift so that you don't distort this, right? Anytime that you insert an image on Illustrator, I'm not sure if I have mentioned this before, make sure that it's embedded, right? Otherwise, if you reopen, let's say that I'm working on this file right here and I open it, Maria's computer right here, and I do not have that image stored on that computer right there, it's going to give me just a box right there that, hey, there's something missing here, right? Because the image was not embedded. Once you embed it, it becomes part of the file no matter where you open it, okay? So that's the image right there. I'll create a new layer right there. As a matter of fact, I'll leave that layer there. I'll just lock it. I just comment to this other layer, right? So now I cannot move this image, okay? So I'll just take you guys through the basic of this, the first steps of this, right? Such as make 2D, right? So I'll go into shaded view, right? Again, the command is that, right? Make 2D, and it's really important, right, that the image you have and the image or the view that you're using to generate the 2D are the same. All right. If you notice, I have not rotated. And if you do, let's say that I rotate for whatever reason, right? I can always go back to my safe view. Oops. Shaded view, Arial. There we go. And I'm back to it because it's really important that they match. The lines are going to go exactly on top of the image. So any little rotation right there is going to be off. Okay. So set my view back again to that Arial 1. And the command again is make 2D. Enter. I select or I drag from one end, one corner, right? Actually, before I do that, actually make sure that everything is unlocked, except for perhaps the reference image. If it's locked, the make 2D will not grab it and it won't draw it for you. So again, make sure that everything that needs to be visible and unlocked is unlocked and visible. So make D is the command. Select your objects, right, from one corner to another one. Select objects to draw, press enter when done. Enter. Again, this window, it's different from version 5, but the important thing is that we at least keep the layer or colors from the original geometry. Okay, and you'll see in a minute what I mean by that. So I'm gonna hit OK. Right, it's thinking. All right, it's done processing. It's very important that I haven't done anything. I just double click on my tabs, go onto my top view, double click, and it's not there because it sends it to the origin, to the 000. Right now it's yellow because it's highlighted. Before I do anything else, make sure that you group it, right, so that you don't, again, lose any little line right there. So again, this looks three-dimensionally. It's not, right? This is actually a 2D drawing. Just like for your freehand drawing class, right? You do a perspective, and that's what this is. You have that. That's a flat drawing, and that's what we're going to be using to edit the drawings that we have on Illustrator. Just like we did with your logo, select it, export. 3 things. Remember, location, my class folder, the name, right? I'm gonna call this make2d, make2d test, and the type, right? The type, this is now going to be a Illustrator, right? AI, right? Because we want that compatible file right there. Hit save. This window pops up again. That's fine. We click OK, and again, we're done there. But if we go onto the folder, right, we have this file right there. And things worked out because it's an AI file. Sometimes you're going to end up with the Rhino file right there. You're going to be, I have a Rhino file there. What happened? We forgot to select the right file type, which was AI file. I'm going to go ahead and double click on it. And we have that, right? These beautiful lines right there. Now, I'm going to make a copy of this. Maybe just move this over here, and I'm going to make a copy over here. Okay? Because you can start playing with this in a number of ways. Right? And again, I wish we had more time to explore with it. But the first thing that I'm going to do, just to show you guys how this enlarged can look, right, is just change everything on that copy just to have a black line. All right? So we do that. Turn everything, whoops, black, not white. It disappeared, still there. All right, now do that and remove the background color from that. We have that right there. Okay, I'm going to group it. Since I already lost the colors, I'm just going to group it. I'm going to copy it, control copy, and I kind of lost track of where we are, but here we are. I paste it over here. I bring it to match the size of this, right? As much as I can. This is significantly larger, and you can see how since I changed the resolution or the size of the rendering, right, it doesn't quite match the size of the make 2D. So that's something that the name of the game now, it's just match them, right? They need to match, and we can use Control-0 to increase that right there. All right, and we start placing this on top of that. I went too big. I'm a little bit lost, to be honest with you. There we go. Oops. Trying to figure out if at least I can get the width of this. Let's see what happens if I get that right there. More or less. Moving this around right there. And still a big difference right there. So I can scale this up right there. It actually looks like it moved, right? Because it's not, the angles right there are not coming out right. So I'll do it as I did it this morning, and actually I'll get the image out of here from Rhino. And this is one of the things that I did not test. Let's actually go back to our image, right, or our view right there, this one right here. And I'll go to my rendering settings right there, since it only took 2 minutes. And actually lock the ratio to my viewport. Right, viewport, and then set it to custom, and then lock the ratio, and then let's do the 18 right there. You see how I cropped it, and then we'll do a render, and hopefully, oops, and then that's a low quality. All right, and then we can take a break right here. Again, I'm just going over a lot of stuff right here. I mean, I wish I could just keep going on and on and on with all these sorts of different techniques and qualities. I mean, for me, sometimes it's the most fun part, right? I mean, once again, you can start playing with these settings. But the idea is that hopefully this serves as a resource for you, that you can later on, go back, and maybe if you did not have a chance to try everything, you try it later on for your projects. And I don't know if you can already see from the image, right? The ratio of it is different, right? It's resembling more of what we got with the Make 2D, all right? And hopefully this will work, because that other image was definitely what was not working. There's something weird with it. So hopefully it works. If not, I'll work with the other one that I already know it was working, which is the one that I was testing this morning. But we actually see some of the changes that we made, right? Such as the rotation of the text right there, that spotlight that I added right here, and some of the material qualities of these letters right there that like I said, especially if you're particularly picky about stuff, this is how dangerous render could be because you're kind of never over it. I mean, you're never done because you're never really satisfied with it. So, whoops, it's done. Just let it think. Don't crash. There we go. Save it. Let's do a 3. And let's see how this works right there. Since we already have 5 boards, right, I'll go ahead and insert it right next to it, right? I already have my line work right here. File, place, 3, place, right there. Select it, embed it, right? And you see again the difference of this. It's actually significantly different, right? And you can see how your ratios capture different objects, right? Here we have no little corner of this building. Right? Here is chopped away. So again, it chops with that, which actually should match this one right here. Let's see if we're lucky, right? If the digital gods are with us. Yay! All right. So it matches. Oops. Drawing order, arrange, front to back. All right. And you get that, right? Which again, I really like. I mean, it adds a different feel to it, right? But what it do, does do, it does do, right? Is it defines your objects for you. And for me, sometimes that's the most important thing, right? That again, sometimes when we have just the rendering by itself, especially certain faces like this, right, they blend well because of the shading effects, right? But once you add the line, you define the objects themselves. I just need to maybe move it a little bit downwards. And not only that, you can have fun with the lines themselves, right? Let's say that maybe I bump them up to a 2. Maybe that's too much. Undo. But what if rather than having black lines, you have white lines, right? And you get that as well, which is a different technique, right? So that was and again, you can play with this, right? I mean, right now it's in a group, so I can actually double click on it, and I can actually select some of these ones individually and give them a different thickness. But that was just what we have right there, right? Now the cool part, or the even more helpful tool of this or application of this, is when we actually start diagramming here. What do I mean by that? Right now, and I think no, I don't have. I'll create a new layer. I'll call it. I'll call this diagram, for lack of a better term, right there. I'll give this a not a material but a color. Right? So I have a lot of colors already there. Orange. Right? I'll make that current right there for right now. I'll just use line. I'll do a line from there to maybe there. I'll do another one from there to there. And I'll do a circle, right? That it is 750 feet in radius, so that it is actually the 1500 area that we have. I'll go ahead and position it center, right, on the site right there. I'll go back to my 3D view. I'll go back to my aerial right there. And as you can see, right, I'm starting losing track of those objects. So I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit, right? And I'm gonna set up a new view, or I'm gonna update one of my aerial views, right, to include that, right? So I'm first going to make sure that I'm on a perspective view. There we go. And just have, right, there we go. And what am I doing? Well, I'm making sure that at least I can see the full circle, right there, and I can see those lines right there that for right now they're just trying to denote some sort of traffic. Now I'm not really sure if it's Luis's file or just the way that I drew these lines, but you can see how the line, it's there, it goes, it disappears, it appears again, it disappears, right? That's because the line or the model is on a slightly angle. So I'm just gonna move it upwards. I'm gonna do the same for this other one right here. Right, move it upwards right there, and the same for the circle right there, which is the diameter, right? And just move it upwards right there. See, what I'm interested in here is that the circle right there appears and it disappears once it either goes behind a building or through a building, right? So it cuts right there and it comes back up and it goes behind the School of Medicine, right? And then it comes back out. Now, I am not going to change its layers, though I am going to change the colors, right? So if I go onto the properties, right, you see that it has layer and it has display color. Under display color, it says by layer, or I can force it to a different color and it remains on the same layer. This is a little trick right there. Not really advisable to do this a lot because the idea is that you recognize your layers by their layer color, but you can actually force the color of the layer if by display color you choose a color rather than be assigned the color of the layer. The idea is just that I want to differentiate these lines of color so that I can show you how to select by color on Illustrator. All right, and I'll just select maybe that magenta right there, and we have that because we're going to repeat this, right? I'm going to repeat this process right there. I'm going to update this view, right? Name views. I'm going to name this aerial view 2. I'm going to save it. I'm going to override it, hit OK. Let's see how this looks with a render view of that, right? Starting to look very nice, I guess. I mean, colorful, something. It's looking something, right? I can do a quick rendering right there. Let's see how long this is taking. Right there. So far, any questions that you have maybe on your notes right there, or steps or comments that maybe just clarify right there while we wait and maybe see how long this is taking? No? Um, I want to say, of course, yes. You can put into it as much as you want, but I would first try to do these techniques right here that I'm going over, and talk about it between you and I, and be like, all right, Luis, orale, right? I mean, you proved to me that you were able to apply the content that the class is learning. From there, everything else is you and just your desire to enhance your drawings. But until then, I would like to first see this done, right? So that again, we use the material that we're learning here in the class. And once I can see that you got this content right here and you're able to not only apply it, but you master it, take it as far as you can. You know what I mean? Absolutely, I'm always in favor of that. But since again, we will only get so far with this as a class, let's at least try to master this. All right. So rendering is done. All right, we go ahead and file and save it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Save it. It's saving right there. Close this. And I'm gonna do another make 2D. I just would like to have an extra line since we're gonna go through this, have more fun with this. All right, so I'm gonna do one more line. I'm on the right layer. Yes, I'm gonna type polyline. Let's say that there's a bus that follows this route. Highly doubt it, but let's just say. Just say that there's a bus that follows that route right there. Again, that should be under that layer. I'm just gonna force its layer color maybe to a yellow right there, and you guys will see right now what I'm trying to do. Right? make sure that it is going through the city itself nicely. I'm going to move this orange line a little bit so they're not overlapping right there. Perfect. And this is where again I say I again stress how important saving your views are, because I just slightly zoomed in and out to get that view again exactly as you had it without your saved views is nearly impossible. Right. So I'll just go back there. Now I'm ready to do my make 2D since I already generated, not that, set view, Arial, shaded. Okay, make 2D, enter, select the objects right there. Again, make sure that everything that needs to be locked, unlocked, and visible is visible. Press enter, hit OK. Go to my top view. We have it right there before you, and you see how those two drawings are overlapping right there. And I'm gonna click out. And let's say that this drawing on the background was not grouped. It's a mess of lines right there. That could be really, really dangerous. So I'm just gonna move this group right there since it's not neatly grouped right there. Select that, group it, export, enter. Make 2D test. We'll call this make 2D test 2. Location, file type, name, save. We will go back to Illustrator right here. We'll bring the image first, place 4, I think so. All right, select it, embed it, all right, and you guys will see right now, right, exactly what we're doing with this in a minute. I'll open make 2D test number 2. I guess that was not it. This is it. All right, here we go. All right, so this is the 2D version of this drawing that we're doing, but let me do something. All right, let's actually work with 2 different options right here, and I'm gonna copy this again. Right, I'm holding Alt and Shift to copy my artboards with the art itself. Now, if you go onto the layers, right, the important thing is that you're actually able to select by layers, right here. So for example, if I select, let's say this circle right there, which is the radius, it seems that it's on this layer right here, right? So I want to copy that, right? So I select on that donut right there, and it selects everything that it's on that layer, right? So if I hit delete, it disappears right there, right? So that's all the lines that I had originally bring in. I can type copy and bring onto the drawing over here. Oops, but we only need one set since I made a copy. All right. And the idea is that you place it on top right here, right, on this drawing right there, and then add color like the one that I have shown you in the beginning of the class, which is this one, right? Edit the circle and all of that, right? But you need to scale it first, right? You need to actually make sure that it fits exactly where it should go, right? So we have the lines right there, but we have no reference, right? We don't know exactly where this goes, right? I mean, I can guess that it goes somewhere over there, right? But that's not right because it's actually in front of the school rather than behind it. And I can go, well, I mean, it's a matter of scaling, right? But I still not know exactly, right? And I don't know how much to enlarge it with. So what I suggest or work around for this, and I'm losing track of my drawings right here, it's actually copy not only that layer right there, but something. And in this case, I'm actually going to copy the building itself, right? So I'm going to select, and I wanted to show you guys a selection tool right here in Illustrator, right, which is select, right? So I select the line. I can go to select, same, fill and stroke, and it selects those objects that have that same fill and stroke, right? Now, again, this is selecting both of these right there. Let me actually get rid of this one for right now because it's getting in the way. All right, so again, select that line right there, select same, fill and stroke, selects that object right there. I'm going to group it again. And now, right, I'm going to select that. Well, I'm actually going to select first everything in this layer, right, which is the diagram layer. Select that. And I'm also going to select, holding shift, the outline of the building, hit control copy, and bring it over here. Right now I can use, right, the lines of the building to at least have a somewhat an idea how much I need to scale this. And by doing so, the idea is that as you scale this, right, it will match, right? By you matching the lines of the building, you also match the lines of the diagramming portion of it, right? So I have an okay drop on this corner over here. However, I moved over here and it needs to be a little bit larger. All right. So I hold shift. Very important that you hold shift. If not, you're going to distort your line. And this is the part that unfortunately we do have to eye it somehow, right? More or less. So, and I'm using my arrows to move this. All right. And just one more, maybe a few more actually. So again, select everything on that layer right there. This one right there. Oops, right there. Hold on, guys. Lost track of this. That, that, that. Oops, not that. There you go. All right. We're almost there. All right. And a little bit more. All right. Over there. There. Let's say there. It's fine. Okay. So I have the lines there now, and I can start diagramming. Now, again, you cannot see them, right? You cannot see them. Why? Huh? They're too thin, right? So let's fix that. Let's actually start with the ring. And this is where your selection by fill and stroke is very helpful. So I have the ring right there, right? But there's another portion of it that is back here. Right? So if I go to select a portion of it, go to select, same, oops, select, same, fill and stroke, and you're gonna see how this comes to life immediately, right? Select those right there, and that's why it was important to have different colors so that we can do different selections. This one I am going to bump it up, all right? Maybe even a 4. I am going to do a stroke of a dash right there. Let's start seeing how that looks, right? So we have that right there, right? So I can select it again, select, same, fill and stroke. And again, if you don't want to be dealing with this whole select by stroke or whatnot, how do we solve that? Well, just create new layers, right? Or create layers that you can actually just select by layer, which that would actually be the way to go. All right. So that's kind of dark. All right, so I'm actually maybe select something lighter right there, and maybe even the dash, right? Increase the. Let's do a bigger gap. Right. Let's do a bigger gap of about 14. There we go. Right. So that's the radius right there. Now we can play with this ones right there. This other lines right there. Right. So we have that line right there. Select, same, fill and stroke right there. It seems that that was the only chunk that we had right there. We can give this a really, really thick line right there. Say that it's a bus or something, a bus route, or no, that's an avenue, right? That's a major street right there. So we have something like that, right? Now we are covering our drawing, right? So another technique that we can do is play with this opacity, right? So we increase the thickness, but we can also decrease its transparency, right? So we can actually see through it. And then, right, we can actually add our arrowheads, right? Which again, that would be over here in the bottom. I suggest using number 10 is the nicest looking one in my opinion, but again, it's about exploration right here. So go ahead and try those right there. So we have that right there. And ultimately, if we're not satisfied with this location, we can you know, play with it. Although I'm going into the name right there. Let's do this yellow one since again I like it because it's broken down. You know, it's broken down into little chunks right there. So select same fill and stroke right there. That one I do like it yellow, right? So I'm gonna leave it there right there. So maybe I bring that right there, that 5, or bring that dash right there. And maybe this one we turn it into little ants or something like that. So maybe we do like a 6 and we do like an 8 or something, right? More like a 4, 3. No, more like a 4, 8. More like a 4, 12. Sure, that right there. Right. So kind of like a Pac-Man or something like that. Right? I mean, just a little bus route right there. And again, what I like about this, is that, and again, it didn't quite get it right. I think this should be. No, actually, I think it is. It's just that the thickness of it now is interfering with the drawing itself, right? So we have that right there. Now here, right, and I think probably and I saw this from some of the girls right here that the arrows, right, just go on the end of the line right there, right? Because if we select everything right there, select same fill and stroke, and I apply this arrowheads right here, right? Say that, and this right here. Well, that's not really right. Well, what happens, right, is that it adds an arrow end at each segment of this line, right? And since this line is being broken down into different segments, right, we have a bunch of line ends or arrow ends. So we don't want that, or we don't need that, right? So we only select the end source of it, add an arrowhead right there. In this case, it gave it to me on the wrong end, but I can flip it right here, and I come back to this bottom portion of it and give it another arrow head right there. And again, I got it wrong, but I can flip it right there. And this is how we start diagramming, 3D diagramming your drawings, right? We have this other bus route right there. Let's say that I want it to be the same thickness that this line right there. I forgot already what that was. I can match it, though I am going to inherit the color. Not a big deal. I can just then force the color to a different one. And I think I already have too much of that tone right there, so maybe I'll just use this right there. And again, we add our arrow ends. Right, and we have that right there. Right. So you can see how, and I wish I had saved how we started this one so we can actually compare them. Right? But you can start seeing that, that whole conversation that I had about workflow, working from that software to the other one. That's what I mean, where the really things take on a different level, right? When you start mixing drawings, 3D drawings with 2D, right? And you start mixing the softwares, you do a portion of it in Rhino and then a little portion of it in Illustrator, right? Additionally, for example, right here, I still have the outline of the building. It's that same green. So, okay, cool. But I mean, how is that really helping me? Well, maybe I can just give it some black outlines right there, and now I have actually outlined the building itself. If I zoom out, right, it stands out as what it should be, right? Whoops. Right. Now from there, right, I mean, I just copied the lines for those objects. As you can see, I don't have lines for the rest of it, but I can if I want, right? If I go in here, right, select same fill and stroke. Of course, I would really recommend this doing all at the same time, because you're gonna see that I'm gonna have to rescale it all again and play this whole game of matching the size. Right, but I'll paste it, group it, right, and just kind of hope for the best kind of thing. I'm gonna bring it right there, right there. Kind of, but not really. There we go. All right. Now they're blue. Perhaps I just want something very light. So, and the beauty about this is that it's digital, right? So you don't like something, it's free to change. Right? I mean, it doesn't cost you anything other than just doing it. Right? So let's say that I actually want them to be black, right? That's how they look with the black outline right there. Or if I want, right, I can select them and double click the color, the stroke color right there, and actually turn it white. I think I like the white version more, right, of those buildings right there. Again, I only selected the buildings that did not have an assigned color, so that's why I don't have anything for these ones right there. But I can actually maybe even, since they're not so relevant, right? I mean, they're just the background buildings right there. I just decreased this line weight a little bit, just so that they're not so stand out right there. And simultaneously, I can actually even increase this a little bit, just a little. You don't want it to too bulky, right? Too much. Okay, and remember, you can select, right, some of these points, right? If I press the letter A as in Apple, you get the direct selection tool. You click on one end, and I can move these a little bit slightly, especially, for example, I want that paisano to kind of be legible, right? And you see that actually the software gave me a number of segments right there, so I can do. There's always some cleanup to do, and that's sometimes the hard part to learn about this. That the again, as I mentioned before, the computer really doesn't know what you want. Right? I mean, it just gives it to you, and you always have to um, go in there with a critical mind and deciding, right? Okay, is that the results that I wanted? And if not, what do I need to do to edit whatever the computer gave me to make those work? Right. So, lastly, right? Just so that I don't maybe go through it, since you guys already know how to do text, right? I'm just gonna copy this one right here that I had already inserted, right? These are just instead of arrows, those are dots. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy these right there. The idea is to label the major buildings that you have right there, so that we can continue using this as a diagram, right? And in this case, oops, it's over here. Paste them over here. So there's the someone for me make sure that 1500 over 2 is in fact 750. I do think that's right, but someone could do me that favor real quick. 7500 over 2. Yeah. All right, and then this guy right there, which is a Texas. So then this actually now goes over here. That's the Texas part of it. All right. And Texas Tech College, I'm sorry. I'm gonna bring this right there. Direct selection tool so that I can actually edit this, right? And edit it right there, right? Bring it right there. And then we have the, whoops, the property, which is that one right there. Maybe do something like that. So property, that right there. Tech, health and science right there. And then lastly, don't forget about the sources that I shared with you guys as well. I think this was on project number 2. The link right here, free vector art, which opens up this guy right there. I went to number 9, freevectors.net. I went in there and typed people. You find this file. I went ahead and click download. A download begins, and that download has this drawings right there, right? And that's where I got the dude. That's the dude right there. And sure, we'll grab this other dude right there. Right now they're in a group, right? So just double click on there. Actually, I'll grab this family right there. So control copy, untitled, bring it over here. Scale is a really important part of this right here, right? Because again, it's just huge. A little advice that I could give you is use the buildings that you have adjacent to them to scale them. So that building should be about 12 feet high. I don't know how much you did for a floor, so maybe about half the size of that. Should somewhat uh, be somewhat proportionate to it. There's always the perspective component of it, right? But again, you see that now at this size, really, it's not really even readable. It's more for the ones that you'll be doing from the street level right there. Select it lastly, and as I did on the examples that I showed you this morning, I just added a different color just for them to stand out. So that when I do that, whew, yeah, really tiny. It's more for the other views that you'll be generating, such as the ones that we talked about, the street level ones right here. Okay, so again, I know this was a lot of content right there, but I don't know. It's just something that every semester, I try to get here, but there's, as you can see, there's so much introduction and context that you first must learn before we actually can get to this fun part right here. And then again, don't forget, right, from here, I mean, the idea is, how do you title this? How do you add text to it, right? And make it look nice like you guys did for the images right there on the on the wall. All right, so I think this is the longest video I've ever made, right, for a class. We're at 151 already. If there's any questions, perhaps that we have that maybe should be on the record. We still have about an hour left of class. Yes, Raven. Correct. So that comes from your analysis right there. The analysis. So hopefully, again, we really decrease the size from that analysis right there. So hopefully, within that radius, you do find now certain buildings. Here, I just faking it. And if not, you're gonna have to create maybe a different criteria in terms of the buildings to color. Let's put it that way. Yes. Yeah. All right, guys. So I'm gonna pause this so that I can actually upload it and for you guys to reference it. All right. So good. What's going on, Chris? Question? Ready to go? Ready to rock and roll? All right.